Many of us are just learning about Juneteenth this year, 2020, and I've decided there's no shame, no matter your skin color, as long as you decide to learn now. Tonight we're talking about Juneteenth, a history forgotten, and how to move forward, so stick around.
Hey everyone, you're listening to the Breezy Moms Podcast, a weekly show that chronicles the adventures of motherhood. I'm Candace. Now let's start the show.
Tonight we have with us Deltra. She's a breast cancer thriver and home educating mama to 5 girls who have never attended any school other than the one they were born into. Her passions include history, poetry, music, art, and making sure all cultures, ethnicities are respected and represented in those studies. Thank you so much for joining us, Deltra.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. It's been a long time coming, and because I met you several months ago now as at like a Connecticut homeschool mom get together. Do you remember that?
Yes.
We did like a mindful meditation in downtown New Haven.
Yep.
And so awesome. Yeah, it was incredible. And I'm not actually a homeschooler, but as a childcare provider and someone trying to, incorporate racially relevant and important things into my childcare, given that there are a diverse group of kids in my program, I was interested in meeting homeschoolers who focus on that kind of thing, right? So we met through the My Reflection Matters group, and you guys are hosting this thing in downtown New Haven. So that was a long, complicated story to say. I'm so glad that I met you.
I'm so glad I met you too.
So we're switching things around. Tom, I see you over there. We're still not in the same place. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I just wanted to say, hey, because you can't get rid of that.
No,
you can't get rid of me. All is well in the land of Oz. I'm here, in the studio. We're still social distancing on the Breezy Moms podcast. And just a reminder, the show's available on Apple Podcasts. It's available on digitalstreamradio.com. Also available on, all the places, right? Stitcher Radio.
Spotify. You always forget the one.
Yeah, I know. And Google Podcasts. So thank you. And you can also go to the breezymomspodcast.com and get all the information for the show there as well. And now we're doing the live stream on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, hit us up, log in, make sure that you tune into us. Feel free to comment because we can see those in this live stream. And I'll let Candace take it away.
Sure. So we're doing things a little bit different this tonight because in the vein of momadom, right, and like sisterhood, when mom says she's got a time, right, I can very easily readjust to make sure that a fellow mom can get to what she needs to do afterwards. It's just this world of being able to pivot and redirect as a mom. I'm very used to. So if you're tuning in and as a regular listener, we will not forget the How Are the Boys. We will circle back to it, but I wanted to make sure that we get to talk. We have enough time to talk to Deltra before she has to sign off. So why don't we jump right in? I'm going to say I made a shout out on Facebook the other day saying that I wanted to talk more in depth about Juneteenth. There's a lot of attention on Black people right now, rightfully so. And thankfully, there's also a lot of attention on Black culture, right? And I find some solace in that because it's not just all the bad, right? We're not focused on all the negative things that are going on for us right now. We are also focusing on culture and taking some time to find joy. And one of these ways that I think I'm super excited to find joy is to learn about a African-American celebration, which should actually be called, and we can talk about this later, should really just be an American celebration called Juneteenth. And I really didn't learn about it until adulthood. And then I really didn't pay much attention to it because nobody else was. Like, that's how this works. So now that people are talking about it, and companies are giving the day off, and we're pushing to make it an observed federal holiday, I think is a really good time to say out loud the things that Juneteenth is made of, right? So Deltra thankfully raised her hand as someone who also learned about Juneteenth in adulthood and has been incorporating it into her family traditions and in turn in her home educating. And so I'm really excited to not only learn about Juneteenth from her perspective, but also to share with you and to learn myself different ways to incorporate celebration with children. So Deltra, why don't you give us first an intro on your home education life?
Home education life. Okay. So I have 5 daughters, and only one of them has ever been to, yes, only one
5
of them
daughters.
has ever been to any sort of, I guess, formal school. My oldest went to preschool for 1 year, and that was it. And one of my, it's not the reason that I start homeschooling, but it's been a really important part in our homeschool is for me to, decolonize their education, because I'm like, I have the opportunity to do things differently. Why would I just do something, like a traditional box curriculum that what they would get in regular public school. I said I had a chance to, decenter whiteness in my own homeschool. And, I had the opportunity to make Black history the overall focus. So that's what I've tried my best to do. And for the first few years, I was kind of doing it by myself. Until, when was it, 2017, when I connected with Chime, who you know, and we connected through a Black homeschoolers group on Facebook, and we both had the idea to create, we were searching for or asking others, hey, have you ever created a homeschool group, for families of color, especially, Black families, because we just, we had all been immersed in very white homeschool groups, and that just wasn't the experience that we wanted for ourselves, our family. We wanted, mom friends who understood our experiences as Black women, and we wanted our kids to be around other kids who look like them or understand their, them and their families. So we got together. Chime had already created My Reflection Matters, her business and websites, and excuse me. We got together and created My Reflection Matters in Home Education, CT Home Education, the Facebook group. And after that, we just, were able to find, or they found us, lots of other Black and brown families who were either home educating or looking to. So, yeah.
That's amazing. This is definitely one of those times where if you build it, they will come.
Yes.
I can only imagine that, the homeschooling, home educating community is definitely growing, but is still small, right? Relatively small. And within that, the Black homeschooling community must be smaller, and again is growing now because of all of the reasons you just said. People are definitely I think people are getting more confident in being able to do it, especially when judging themselves against a school system that we all are starting to realize are underserving our kids. So definitely when you build it, they will find you.
And the beauty of social media, right? Like you mentioned, you went on Facebook and you looked for groups or found or was connected to a group that specifically was talking about or was geared towards what you were looking for. And that is the power of social media, right? That you're able to look for other like-minded individuals that are seeking to have the same experience. And you've built this amazing coalition of mothers that want to provide their children quality education in a way that is served to them, that is relevant to them, right? And not whitewashing like some of the curriculum that you get in some of these public education schools and even parochial or even private schools, right? The history that we're being taught is not the one that actually happened. I mean, most of it did, but there's a large portion, especially Black history, that is not being told the way it should. And so what you ladies are doing is amazing.
Thank you.
I would concur. So I want to jump right in with knowing that sort of background from you. I want to jump in because I am also really super excited, as Maddie is, to learn more about Juneteenth. And full disclosure, I spent probably 3 hours today. I don't know where I found that time, but I joined 2 different Zoom calls today from local organizations that were holding conversations on Juneteenth, and read a couple articles that people tagged me in when I asked for help, right? And of all the things, I like to just name a thing, and I need help. So shout out to everybody who responded, yourself included. Because there is a lot of research that you can do on your own, but it is nice to have a starting point. So why don't you give us a short history, a short primer on Juneteenth?
Okay. May the ancestors be with me. So, okay. So, I'm just going to keep it short and simple. Juneteenth is an annual celebration, that commemorates the freeing of the last of the enslaved people in the U.S. It commemorates June 19th, 1865, when the federal troops made their way into Texas and let the Black people who were enslaved there know, hey, guess what? Everyone else has been freed for the past couple years. Yeah. Sorry about that, And so to commemorate that day, which is also, known as, it got shortened to Juneteenth, obviously our ancestors were also into slang. So Juneteenth or Freedom Day. And it's just, and it just became about celebrating, that,
we're all finally
everyone
free.
was finally,
everyone finally. Yes. I think that's the real crux of the definition there is that it's not the day that it's not the Emancipation Day. It's not the day the proclamation was signed. That happened in 62 or 63. But, to give credence to the time, right? People were doing mail by horses or, it was taking a long time to get information across. It probably wasn't taking that much time, but it was taking a long time. So, but still, I think in any world, right? 2 years is a long time to get that bit of information. And the thing that was like astounding for me today, or I guess not really that, is that once we'd like to think that once Lincoln said, okay, they're free, then it's just done. But slavery was so entrenched in all that it was to be American and all that it was to have wealth in this country, that just because they said it in the White House didn't mean that people in Missouri or Texas or California or wherever they were ready to accept that information. And what are you going to do about it?
Exactly. Like many things, it's taken time when people are like, oh, this is not what we're doing anymore, but it's taken time for people to jump on board,
Well, and a lot of people don't realize that those states that were immediately close to the vicinity of Washington, D.C. or the non-Confederate states, they took their property and their people and they fled these states and they went further west, because the thing is, the further you remove yourself from the center of politics, the better off you are. So they thought. And it proved to be right? Because they ended up, avoiding folks in Texas from getting the message for 2 years. It took a general to write in and say, hey, by the way, let me remind you, 3 years ago or 2 years ago,
the war's over.
The war is over.
Yeah.
The Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and you are free people.
Yes.
And so that just goes to show you the drive that white America, especially in the South, had to continue with slavery. And another thing that a lot of people don't realize is that around this era, even though the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863, there were still states in the Union that still had legalized slavery. And that Emancipation Proclamation only applied to the Confederate States. And it wasn't until all of this took place and the war was over that the rest of the states that surrounded that Mason-Dixon line that were part of the Union jumped on board and said, okay, we have to do this.
Yeah.
It's real.
No one was just going to willingly give up, what they thought of as their property. They were willing to flee for it,
I saw an excerpt from the proclamation that basically said, like, you're free, but we encourage you to stay and work for wages. And the explanation that I saw under it was like, people are like, no, I'm out. Nah, like the 1863 translation of nah, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's really amazing to see, how a significant event like this in history grows and then just spreads all over the U.S. You start to see a lot of the people in Texas, the black folk in Texas to move away, but they're not coming back east. They were going north and west, places like California, like Oregon, and state of Washington. And you start seeing Juneteenth grow in those spaces as a significant celebration as part of the history of where it came from. And throughout throughout history, you see where, its popularity as far as celebration, it would go up and down, right? It would go up in waves. And one clear example of that is when we started fighting like really hard in the early 50s and early 60s, you start to see a decline in the celebration of Juneteenth because there was a heightened awareness of civil rights and there was a very big fight for civil rights. So throughout history, you're going to see where it would like drop off and come back. But this would definitely be one of those holidays or one of those celebrations that would definitely be an appropriate national holiday to have because it's such a wonderful thing to celebrate.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a big part of American history if we accept this as American history, right? So Deltra, can you tell me a little bit about you growing up? Did you, I guess the answer is no, but tell us a little bit about your relationship with Juneteenth and how you came to find it.
Well, no, I did not grow up knowing about Juneteenth like many other people who I have spoken with about it. I did not learn about it until I was an adult. Actually, in 2016, I learned about it when a friend who's actually from Texas posted Happy Juneteenth and asked who was celebrating in a group, in a Facebook group that I was in for a show that I will shout out, Underground. It's a good one to watch, especially for Juneteenth. So it was a like discussion group for that show. And someone posted Happy Juneteenth and I was just like, what is Juneteenth?
Exactly.
You're almost like embarrassed to ask, but then there were enough of us who obviously did not know what it was. And so, it was just explained to us. And then I not only felt kind of embarrassed, but also, just kind of upset. Like, why would I not know about this? Why did I never hear about this in school? It was never, taught to us. It seemed like it was pretty significant enough event and, something worth mentioning in the history books, something worth celebrating. So I was just kind of frustrated that I had not known about it. And then I kind of thought, okay, well, I guess it's just a Texas thing.
Right.
But as the years have gone on, I've, seen more Juneteenth events, even on this side of the country over here in New England, it's been like, okay, well, some people know about it and are, wanting to bring light to it and celebrate it.
So I first heard about Juneteenth when I was in New Haven. I had never heard about it before. It was racking my brain. I mean, I've been in New Haven for 10 years now, or, in this area, Hamden, New Haven, for about 10 years now. But really, it was like a Juneteenth, not a march is not the right word, but a Juneteenth celebration that went down Dixwell, and, ended at the Green or something like that.
Okay.
And, involves step dancing and a marching line, a band line, all of that stuff.
Yep.
That's the first time that I ever heard about Juneteenth. And I thought maybe it was a New Haven thing, or if I'm being really honest, I thought that Juneteenth was like a Hotep kind of thing, right? Like, what I mean? Like, if we're just going to 100, right? There are some people who are just like, I am uber black. Right? You don't know these things.
I don't acknowledge July 4th only this day, and why don't you know about it too?
Exactly. They have the like kente cloth little beanies on, and they're just real into it. And I think that's the most painful part for me is that because it hasn't been taught in school or a federal holiday or given any kind of worth outside of the Black community, right? Yeah. Because if we're being honest, it like doesn't matter if everybody doesn't pay attention to it. You know what I mean? And that breaks my heart to say it, but that's what it feels like. And it also feels like if you participate in this ancillary thing or this Hotep thing, then the general public, right? We're trying to be like accepted by general white America will see you as being radicalized and extra and a problem, right? We see
like you're rebelling, you're pushing away their 4th of July.
How dare you, right? We see anyone who elevates Blackness gets painted, right? There's a reason why people talk about Malcolm X one way and they talk about Martin Luther King a different way. You know what I mean? Yep. And Juneteenth felt very Malcolm X to me.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm learning better now, but that's what I thought then.
And that is what systemically Southern white people wanted to happen, right? They wanted that date in that celebration oppressed, like many of the other things that they did.
Right. They didn't allow them to collect in any public spaces, so they couldn't have anywhere to actually celebrate this.
Correct. So, I mean, you had Black folks coming together and buying property just so that they would be able to gather and have their celebrations. I mean, when you think about what they were doing, in the early 1900s, all the way through the Jim Crow laws that were passed, you had a lot of states that were amending constitutions to pass laws to suppress voter turnout or votes for example, the Black folk, gathering in public spaces, segregation, and things like that. And so all of these things were put in place specifically to oppress events like this.
Right.
And that also attributed.
Right. Exactly.
It also attributed to the decline in the celebration of these events because it was very hard to do in the South. Mm-hmm. And the Jim Crow South was very detrimental to this particular celebration.
I think if we're being honest, I think it's hard. It's hard everywhere. And I think we do a disservice, especially now when it feels like we're allowed to say what we want to say, right? And now when we have a chance to say what we want to say, I think we do a disservice to really separate the South from the North, from the West, right? It is one America. And like currently people are being lynched in California, right? Like that's not Texas, that's California. That's North Carolina. That's very close to the North, right? That's like the closest the South gets to the North. So I think that we do a disservice to separate people in the way that we talk about this, because we allow for some people to ignore their own contribution to what's happening right now, right? Like not being actively racist is still not being not racist, right? Yeah. Like it's just, it is not the same. And so I just want to call a thing, and like the South sucked, right? But I think that I've learned so much in the last couple weeks about things that have gone on in the North and on the coast, right? That are just nice people trying to be nice, right? Trying to not, ruffle the feathers, but like beaches in Connecticut were not integrated until like 79. You know what I mean? Like it was just
and we do have to own that,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, not we, but
Right.
And I want to clarify. I'm not saying that people in the North aren't racist, because we know that's not true. They are. But it just goes to speak to the decline of the celebration of the holiday itself, because it was it started in the South, it started in Texas and worked its way up. And as a result of all these Jim Crow laws, people weren't really finding out about it because they were being suppressed and they were being, they were trying to avoid these gatherings at all costs, or even having rights. I mean, they went as far as, making all black people in a lot of these states that had these Jim Crow laws second-class citizens that couldn't vote or had to pay to make it to the ballot box. Or take a test, or all these other crazy things that they put in place to suppress, black people from having a say in how they were governed. And so, I could see why now you're starting to see a really amazing awakening of how momentous this occasion was in Galveston, Texas, and how amazing it is to celebrate it nationwide, because it was truly an event that changed the course of American history for everyone.
So as we think about the current time, right, today, Deltra, how are you celebrating Juneteenth with your family? What kinds of new traditions are you building with your girls so that they don't, I hate to say it this way, right, don't end up like you, finding about an integral part of their history so late in life? Not so late in life. We're not late in life.
I know what you mean. No, but I know what you mean, because, I'm always trying to educate them in such a way where, one, they don't have to unlearn things.
Right.
Because so many of us, it's those two things. It's like we're just learning something about our history, or we're also having to like actively work to unlearn things. So those are like have been my two goals in homeschooling. I'll be honest, when I first learned about Juneteenth, I was nervous to jump in, because sometimes you feel like, okay, well, how do you do this? I don't want to like mess it up. I don't want to, get it wrong. And the main thing that I always want to tell people now is that you can't really mess it up. It's like, just start and celebrate, and the ancestors are going to be happy that you're living, that you're living. But it's just like those T-shirts and that saying, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. Absolutely. And there's been times in my life where I thought, oh God, like I'm just being a stay-at-home mom. Am I living my ancestors? Yes. Because my ancestors would have loved to even get to mother their own children. And so, and so of course there are some like, maybe you'd call them key components to Juneteenth. And I, learned about those and then just decided what I wanted to incorporate. I mean, most of us, we already know how to do Juneteenth because we're really good at throwing cookouts. So it's like, hey, we already got the cookout thing down. So just do a cookout on what you do on July 4th, do on June, 19th.
Or the weekend or whatever day.
Yeah. So for me,
do you know some of those pieces
right now? Huh?
I'm sorry, before you go on, do you know some of those key pieces for the cookout? I saw it was like watermelon, strawberry soda. There was some other kind of dish. I don't know if it's a bean dish or something. There's like a salad with black. It's like a Marcus Garvey salad. You can tell I swear
right.
on Wikipedia.
So one of the first things I did, I read about Juneteenth. I was like, okay, key thing, can't mess up if I just make sure I'm doing it on the right date. So, right. And then the other thing was the significance of red food and drinks, and so I definitely did not want to leave that out. Right now, because red, for a few reasons. One, just to remember those whose blood was shed and who were lost, in slavery, because obviously not everyone made it out of slavery. Not everyone got to be there at Freedom Day. I mean, individuals were lost, families were torn apart, so not all families could come together to celebrate even being free. So the red was to symbolize that. Yeah. So the red was to remember them. And also to symbolize strength and perseverance. And, I've even read, and some people believing that the red kind of, stems from some of the tribes from Africa and belief in things of the supernatural nature and incorporating that. So yeah, red has a lot of significance. So for me, the first year I did Juneteenth, obviously we weren't quarantined, so it could look different. So, I told all my friends and family about it, and I was like, I'm having a Juneteenth, we're having a Juneteenth party, cookout. And of course, my family is just like, what? Even my parents are like, what? And like you said, it sounds like some weird thing that I just learned about. They're like,
there goes again. Extra.
Yeah, it's like, she's been watching that underground show and learned a lot about Black history and slavery, and now she wants to do this thing. But everyone just got on board. I was like, hey, we should want to do this. Like, this is a day for us. And I honestly feel like you feel like it should just be a part of American history. It should be something that others look at like, oh, that's a Black people thing, Juneteenth, let them do their little thing, because if people keep up with that mindset, it minimizes it. And it's a huge deal, and it also makes it when people look at it with that mindset, then of course they can, just ignore it and dismiss the idea of it being like a nationally recognized holiday. Right. But at that time I decided to do a big cookout, and we had red velvet cake for dessert and, barbecue. Those are just kind of key components. I know that I've read and seen in like picnic photos from back in the day. It was really important to the ancestors to get dressed up in their Sunday best. That's always an important part of Black culture when it comes to holidays. And especially for them back then, people who they didn't get to do that all the time, look and feel their best. So that was really important to them, getting dressed up. And then some of the activities that they enjoyed were like fishing and baseball games and, just recreational stuff.
It sounds like joy. It sounds like joy, right? Like,
yes, that's the key component. I think that's the overall most key component is just Black joy happening on that day. It's like you can't go wrong if you get the date right and incorporate in whatever brings you joy. And for me, I like to, have the foods, like I've said, some years I've done a big cookout with everyone. Some years it was just like a special Juneteenth themed dinner with just my family, where I, made foods that were, culturally relevant. And tomorrow, because we're quarantined and because I'm just in a disorganized and lazy mood, I'm literally just doing a tea party with my daughters that will be Juneteenth themed. Like beautiful. We're big tea party people. We do tea times often, and poetry tea times are pretty big in the homeschool community, especially when you want to teach a specific subject unit, focus on a specific poet or something. So I'm going to do a Juneteenth themed poetry tea time. That's what we will be doing. We will be drinking, and I'm actually having some like right now, some strawberry iced tea.
Oh,
And
amazing.
you could Google and find
I'm
old
having
recipes.
tea too.
Yes, tea all the time. You could find recipes for tea cakes, which are really popular in the South and with our ancestors. Yes, I know some Black folks even have their own recipes, and they will not give them up.
Nope.
Of tea cakes, and red velvet cake. I always, no matter what we have red velvet cake, whether I make it or I just buy it. That's a great time. It's a great time, especially for any white people who want to participate in Juneteenth. Great time to support Black cooks, you know, Black chefs and such. Put in an order for a red velvet cake. That's what I did last year. I got a giant sheet cake, red velvet. And always have some sort of red drink, and that's what we do. We discuss and read about it. Sometimes it's more in depth, sometimes it's more simple. The first year that we did it, everyone was, like I said, a little bit confused about what exactly it was. So I felt like it was really important to have kind of a story time. And so I always think it's really special to have like someone who's an elder do that. In my case, I asked my mom to read the story time. It was my daughters and some of their friends had come, and so the kids just gathered around and listened to a book about Juneteenth. One of our favorites, children. There's a couple of picture books that are really good. Juneteenth for Maisie is one of them. And it's like a modern day little girl and her family getting ready to celebrate Juneteenth. And then All Different Now, that's another one. And that one I really like because I think older kids enjoy it more too, but it's still a picture book. And that one takes place, it's told from the perspective of an enslaved little girl who is there when it's announced, when they find out that they are free.
Wow.
And their celebration afterwards. So, you know, we just take a moment and read some books, maybe read some poems like Still I Rise or Langston Hughes' Let America Be America, and, you know, contemplate why he repeatedly says in that poem that America was never America to him. I definitely would recommend that to white folks who are celebrating Juneteenth, you know, or trying to start commemorating it too. But yeah, I do feel like for Black folks and for myself, I like to try and make it the focus joy. And I think we really need that right now. Like I'm making a Black Joy playlist and, you know, it's just going to be focusing on joy.
That is so important because so many times we focus on slavery as the only part of Black history, and the beginning and the end of Black people is slavery. And there is so much joy to us, even in those dark times. There's so many beautiful things that came. And I obviously don't want to minimize the horrendousness of slavery, but there's so much beauty that came out of people who are just, you know, you just can't hold Black people down. You just
exactly.
You can't, and you shouldn't.
Acknowledging even in the midst of that, you know, even in the midst of like we just survived something like slavery. It's like we're gonna turn up. You know?
and that's the beauty of the holiday, right? When you think about the celebration and how it's celebrated, there is no specific way of celebrating it. It is special to whatever you make it, right? If you are someone who is in the Black community and you want to look at Juneteenth as a date for you to commemorate your history, and that specific history, and you want to do things that are geared towards that, you want to read books and educate yourself on the real history that's not being taught in America, then that's something that you can do. If you want to have a big barbecue with lots of, you know, amazing dishes and have family and friends over, there's nothing wrong with that either. It's such an adaptable way to celebrate the fact that, you know, that we are free. in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty about it, right? It's not specific. Like when you look at certain holidays, that you're celebrating a specific thing. Juneteenth could be a lot of things to many different people within the community, and so that's the beauty of it, that you get to make it your own and make it special. But the most important part of that is to just celebrate it.
Yes, I mean, we should focus on Black people on Juneteenth. I'm just gonna.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's a big factor. That's a key component. No white people don't start celebrating Juneteenth and leaving us out the picture. And like, this is just a day. No, but I do feel there's if white people were ever invited to the cookout, I'm like, Juneteenth is the cookout that I would want you to be invited to, because why would you not want to focus on and celebrate a day that truly, like, it's everything that they want to pretend July 4th is.
It's true.
You know, it's the day that it is. It's the day when people actually, it's like, okay, we are actually like all legally all in the fold now,
right?
You know, of freedom.
And as we close, I will say that as we close this segment with Deltra, I will just say that there's a question of who should be celebrating Juneteenth. And in the vein of Black history is American history, is U.S. history, we should all be celebrating Juneteenth. We should definitely focus on Black history, Black people, the emancipation of people, the final day when people were free. We should take that time, all of us, Black, white, and other, to learn more about Black people. We should use that day. I think now I'm thinking about this day as a day of learning, as a day of commemorating, a day of joy, a day of reaffirming that you will be better, right? That you've been trying really hard to be great, and maybe there were some times where you slipped, but you are going to rededicate yourself to be very inclusive and anti-racist and knowledgeable about all of the parts of American history that are actually American history, right? And not think about it as your history and my history. And I think that if we think about Juneteenth in that way, we're not taking away from Black people and Black joy, but we're actually lifting up Black joy. So I say, and I think Deltra, you would agree with me that Juneteenth is for all of us, but all of us should be focusing on Black people.
Absolutely.
But all of us can't celebrate it the same way, right?
No, we can't celebrate the same way. For me, like I said, it's very joy focused. I do feel for non-Black people, take it as an opportunity to also, like, I'm not going to be talking about slavery, everything, because we talk about that a lot and enough, and we know Black pain personally. Me and my daughters are going to be reading Still I Rise and dancing to Beyonce and Lizzo and celebrating Black joy.
All the good stuff.
Let it be a time for white people to recognize our joy and humanity also, and celebrate freedom truly for everyone. But also, maybe the thing that I always recommend to white people is don't just teach about things from the past and leave it there. Bring it around and connect it to today, because that does matter. That, it matters. Yeah, that's one of the things they don't do in our schools, and leave it out. And the other thing I want to say is that none of us should feel guilty, or ashamed that we don't know about this holiday, because the majority, so don't use that as an excuse to not jump in. Like, most of us came out of these very whitewashed, we're a product of these whitewashed school systems, so it's not our fault,
Right. I hear you. I
just want to emphasize
the Tea Party tomorrow.
Like if you are a family and you're white and you're planning to celebrate Juneteenth and you have not one person that's Black there, take the opportunity to learn about Black history as a result of your celebration. Don't go out having a full-fledged barbecue with nothing but white folks.
Yeah,
celebrating it's a national holiday. I mean, we would think
without acknowledging
the fact, or going through some sort of attempt to educate yourself and know why America is looking to celebrate this as a country, because it is important that its history. And if you want to learn more, one of the best things that you can do is there's a lot of public celebrations that are happening in parks all over the place. all over the U.S.
Online, definitely.
Go.
Yes, lots of virtual events right now. Type it in on Facebook, Juneteenth, celebrate, and then just check in your area, because when I learned about Juneteenth, I was surprised, I would see like in Hartford that different museums hosted Juneteenth events, like full day workshops for kids and activities. And, it's there. It's just not as big, Yes.
Yet.
But we want to make it big.
We're gonna claim 2020. We're gonna claim 2020 that Juneteenth from now will be as big as 4th of July.
Yes, and hopefully next year people can really gather again, and so white people can come to Black Friends Juneteenth get-togethers, because I feel like that's a little better.
We need to
throw their own by themselves like this.
Get the invite. You need an invite.
Yes,
you can
only by invitation only. Invitation only.
Somebody needs to remind Hawaii that it needs to get on board quickly.
Yes,
I hear it's Hawaii and the Dakotas.
Dakota actually passed a resolution in 2020 observing the holiday statewide. So it is Hawaii is the only state right now in our union that does not have anything on the books. So
I'm cool with that. I've decided right now that that there's a lot of attention, and a lot of it is based, keeping it 100, in white guilt. And I think that that's okay, right? I think that generally we think guilt is a negative thing, but if it takes white guilt to get you to sort of focus and pay attention, then I'm okay with that. And if we get some things like acknowledging Juneteenth, like some of the other things that are going on right now, totally through the roof donations to local and national Black and brown organizations, I will take it. I will ride that guilt as long as it takes, because it still doesn't make up for 400 years.
No.
Let's say that out loud.
I know.
But I think that we move, we ride the white guilt, and we hope that through that guilt that I think we should all sit in for a little bit, even me for not knowing about Juneteenth, we should sit in it a little bit and then come out better for it afterwards.
Yes.
So I really hope that at this point, 3 weeks in, we're 3 or 4 weeks in, that people aren't feeling fatigue, right? They're not feeling, let's call a thing. That white people are not feeling fatigue by all of the finger pointing that we're doing right now, because usually we don't finger point, but right now we're in the mood and we pointing, right?
Yes.
And I think it's okay. Because usually we're praying and we're forgiving and we're giving leeway, and this is one of the only times that we are legit finger pointing. So I can take it and use it as an opportunity to self-reflect and be better coming out, and then we all keep trudging up this mountain together, because getting Juneteenth on the federal holiday books is not the same as undoing 50 years of red line, of undoing voter suppression, of undoing colonialism of the mind, right? It's not enough, but it is the start. And as usual, if you are willing, white people, to participate, then Black people are generally willing to bring you along. And that's what I think that's how I think you should feel about Juneteenth. Get brung along into Juneteenth. I am getting brung along into Juneteenth. And it's okay, right? It's okay as long as we're all moving in the same direction, just knowing that there is more up ahead, right? We are not nearly done, and we're not going to be distracted by any of the things that are going on. They're giving us some breadcrumbs, some really great things have been achieved in the last couple days, actually. But if you're paying attention, you recognize the playbook, right? You recognize the switch of, if we make these guys happy, then they'll turn against the other guys. And we don't want to do that anymore, right? We want to
Yep.
stay all together. So let's take this
Yes.
momentum and ride it. Let's ride the Juneteenth wave.
Absolutely.
Together.
I agree.
Deltra, it has been a pleasure to have you on, and I am cognizant of the time. I want to get you to your next thing, your next mom engagement. So
Yes.
thank you so much. I feel the joy. I'm ready for a tea party, and I feel I feel really good about being in this place where I didn't know, but it's okay because I'm gonna do better.
Yes.
Right? When you know better,
Yep.
you do better. So thank you
Yep.
for sharing that with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
Definitely. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. And there are so many other things. Like you are a whole thing.
Almost dropped my bottle.
Like 3 different shows with you. And there's so many other things I wanted to bring up, but they could be a whole
Feel free to
episode.
invite me back.
So come back anytime. We will schedule time for you to come up because there is so much more that we can talk about. And
Like
it has been a pleasure
plan.
talking to you. Okay.
Awesome.
So thank you so much. Take care of those beautiful girls. And
I will.
I can't wait to see pictures of your Juneteenth celebration.
They will be posted. All right.
All right.
Good night, you guys.
Have a wonderful celebration.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
She's amazing. I love her energy.
Yes, she
My
really,
gosh, she's
really
like
is.
so like infectious. It's amazing.
I really, really enjoy her.
So I didn't get to ask, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm really good. I think I'm really good. I'm really good. I'm really good. Yeah, no, it's been an incredible, it feels like so much has happened. We're in month 6, right? I couldn't believe that June was already here.
Yeah,
and then
I
it
know.
feels like June is already here.
Time flies when you're on Prozac.
So much has happened in 2020.
So
Like so much.
So let me ask you though, right? We've just literally had a very, very educational conversation on the meaning of Juneteenth and its history. What are you doing to celebrate Juneteenth tomorrow?
So I am going to. I didn't know. Let's keep it 100. I didn't know how I was going to celebrate. I was looking on Facebook for different events that were going on, and the ones that I found were happening today. So I already joined them. They were more educational, right? They were like a forum on Juneteenth and some other kind of like educational bit on Juneteenth. One hosted, it was hosted by Students for Educational Justice, which is a local local youth-led organization in New Haven that was started by a friend of mine that I used to work with, and now is led by a wonderful woman, and it's just uplifting the voices of young people, right? Something she said tonight was that as adults, we think we know what young people need or what they should be doing. And we impose on them, right? We impose on them our ideas and dreams and all of those things. And if we take a second to give them space, give them the information that they need to be able to do things, that they are always surprising, right? They're always surprising in that they know what they need and they know what to do. So I didn't mean to do this, but one of the really cool things to shout out Students for Educational Justice is that they worked on a resolution, I think it is, to get Black history, like an elective for Black history I think it's an elective. It's not a requirement, but it's an elective in all high schools across Connecticut.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. So
right, because you're going to get a lot more than what you get in 3 pages of a history book.
Exactly. So I'm vague on the details of it. It's not mandatory, right? Which is what we wanted, what they wanted, a mandatory class or introduction or inclusion of Black history, like real Black history, not just 3 pages about slavery in high school curriculum. They didn't get that, but they did get it. They got a step closer to what was already there, and I think that that's a big deal because we're showing that so many of us did not learn this stuff in school, right? And I went to a fancy school. I didn't pay. Somebody paid a ton of money for me to go to fancy school, for me to not learn about my own history, right? About people who look like me, to only learn about a certain kind of history. And some people are in schools where they're teaching that enslaved people were immigrants, right? They're teaching that they, found ways to be joyful in slavery, right? Like it's just not right. So I think we're very clear right now on the fact that American history is very lacking in representing a whole host of things, and that part of our education system, and probably all of it, needs a swift kick in the ass.
Oh, big time.
So,
there's a lot of things happening.
Yeah. So they hosted a forum today that I listened to that was really great. And again, I said earlier that some friends posted some really cool articles that I read on, like a BuzzFeed 12 things you might not have known about Juneteenth, or the history of Juneteenth and that kind of thing. So I feel like today I learned a lot, and tomorrow I think we have a play date with a friend. And now having some more information, I think I'm going to go in this route that Delta just suggested, because my kids are into fancy, right? I don't think they're really into tea, but they're into fancy. And so we might be able to manage a bit of a tea party and just do a little bit of joy, read a story, that kind of thing.
And it can be iced tea, or it could be anything. Just make sure that you incorporate maybe some red velvet cake and things like that, because she said that's something that she does. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I wish I don't have anything that I can think of except red food coloring. So I might be able to just tint some things red. Whatever.
Make the iced tea red. Bake some red cookies. I don't know.
Yes. Listen, we're not baking.
What was it? Tea cakes?
Tea cakes. I don't even know what a tea cake is.
I wanted to ask her, and I was like, okay, tell me what tea cakes are. So, but I suppose there's always next time.
There's always next time. Yeah. It sounds like those little, it sounds like something British, right? Have you ever been to a high tea?
No.
So
I don't even know a teacup. Like all my teas I drink in my coffee mugs.
In your coffee mugs. So I have a ton of tea stuff, because for my 30th birthday, my 30th birthday party was a tea party. And so I went around looking for all kinds of cool tea sets, and I did a whole thing with the little sandwiches, the little ham sandwiches.
I hope it was spiked tea.
I mean, there was booze, but there was tea. It was just regular tea.
Okay. So I would have mixed up Long Island iced tea and served that.
No, I wasn't thinking through all of that. But it sounds like tea cakes sound like a British thing. They sound like they're probably dry, and they're probably crackers. They always, we don't think the same. Cookies or crackers in.
Let me Google this stuff. Tea cakes.
Whatever it is, I don't know.
Cakes. Oh my God.
The other thing that I'm trying not to do.
Oh, Southern tea cakes. They're just like crackers.
I just told you. Did I not just tell you?
Oh,
Lord, I just told you they're probably crackers.
Yeah, no.
Roll back the audio. I'm pretty sure I just told you they were crackers. But anyway, the whole point is that sometimes I and this is a whole nother thing, and I don't want to get all the way into it, but sometimes I definitely identify as Black American, and feel very confident in that, right? I look the way I look. I'm from the Bronx. I very clearly and very comfortably identify that way. But that's not what my family is, right? My family is from Belize. My family is from Jamaica. And it's very different. And I think that sometimes sort of some of Black culture gets very specifically tied to a more Southern culture, right?
Uh-huh.
Like a collard greens and mash and mac and cheese kind of thing, that I'm not very familiar with. And I decided today, and I'm trying really hard to hold myself to, is to not to cop out in that way, right? Just because my family is not from here or is not Southern doesn't mean we're any less Black, right? We look Black. when you see us in the street, we're definitely Black. You know what I mean?
Hey, listen, you're
And
getting
so
profiled the same way.
you're
So
getting
I mean,
profiled the same way. And so like the nuances in like they're I'm getting like a little bit confused, right? Black incorporates a whole lot, right?
Mhm.
Again, my family is not I'm first generation American, but we're still Black, right? Southern Black, Northern Black, Caribbean, West Indian, all of those things, they all mean Black, but all of those little pieces have their own histories, right?
Mhm.
They're very tightly wound, and we're all from the same people, but they all have their own histories. And one of the things I'm trying to write in myself is that just because I didn't grow up with collard greens doesn't mean that I'm not Black, and doesn't mean that I don't have like basically the same experience, right?
Yeah.
And so,
well, the thing is, like I said, it's a very unique holiday, and you can make it whatever you want. So, I
Mhm.
mean, if you want to have a Caribbean infused, spread for Juneteenth, that's okay too.
Mhm. No, what I was going with was like almost an excuse for why I didn't know, right? Like that my family's not from here, so obviously we wouldn't know. But we're still here, and we're still
Yeah.
a part of Black American culture. And when we do these things of like really picking out, well, I'm Caribbean and I'm West Indian. Oh, but I'm from St. Thomas and you're from Barbados. Like all of those little minute details, like they're big because culture matters, but they do more of a disservice to separate us than is necessary or warranted or healthy, you know? And so we should all be in embracing all of what it means to be Black for all of us,
Mhm.
especially all of us that are here in America, you know? And so even though my family just came here in the 80s, doesn't mean that we don't basically live the life of people who've been here since the 1800s. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
agreed. I mean, again, whether you're from the West Indies, the Caribbean, or from the U.S., if you're a Black person in America, you're being looked at the same way. You're being
the same
profiled the
way.
same way and treated the
Right.
same way.
Mhm.
And so, it's to everyone's advantage to come together and fight the good fight.
And fight the good fight. So yeah, that's how I'm feeling. I am getting rid of the guilt. I just heard someone say like the guilt doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve the community. We'll just get over the fact that I only learned about it in adulthood, and we will just move forward from here. And so I encourage any of my allies, any of my friends who are listening, who are not Black, who are just, hearing about it, maybe only heard about it a little bit or whatever, and are worried about how to participate or how to support, to just move forward, right? We're moving forward with this new piece of information, and we're recognizing everyone around us and sort of the full value of all of us. And I'm really sort of taking to heart that Juneteenth is for joy and for recognizing the full value of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I am. The boys are good. We don't even have time to talk about them tonight. But
The boys are always fantastic. They're
The boys
amazing boys, by the way.
Yes, they really are.
You cracked me up today because you posted a post on Facebook that you scheduled this whole planting thing, and 5 minutes in they were gone, and you were left there with all the little cups and
Exactly.
and stuff.
They did the thing.
Dying.
And so I do want to talk about that at a later date because, where school is ending, virtual or distance learning is just about done, and people are thinking about summer opportunities. And I legit scheduled this gardening class, and they did they had already planted we decided to plant sunflower seeds. And so they did the little dirt thing. And then Lincoln was like, oh, I want to go outside and put it outside. And then he never came back, right? Like he moved on. And so I don't know what to do with that, because we have this expectation that virtual whatever can be the same as being in a classroom. And maybe for older kids it can, but not for 4 and 6 year olds. So I'm really hard pressed to sign up for any of these virtual camps, because I'm worried about sending them to in-person camp. And now I'm worried about signing up for any of these virtual camps because I'm going to spend the money and they're just going to refuse to sit in front of the computer. So
Yeah.
if any of you have any ideas, let me know.
Question for you. How's your garden doing?
The garden is doing well. I just checked on it. I probably have been slacking on the watering a little bit. So my peas are lush at the top, but are looking a little dry at the bottom. And I'm worried about my cucumbers. I imagine that cucumbers need a like shit ton of water because they're basically water plants. And if you feel the leaves of my cucumbers, you can hear the noise. It's like shh. Right? They're a little bit rough.
Yeah.
So I'm a little worried that they're not getting enough water. But the other things, the kale is doing really well. We did our first harvest of our lettuce, and that was delicious. Lincoln likes to wrap the lettuce in, wrap a piece of lettuce around a bunch of dill, and he's eating raw lettuce and dill straight out of the garden. Okay. Meanwhile,
look at him.
Meanwhile, he will not touch the stuff I buy from the supermarket. Okay.
Well, hey, listen, it's a really good, amazing learning experience. And they're learning more about sustenance and being able to self-sustain than they will learn in any virtual class. So if they're out there digging in, let them.
Yeah, let them.
Seriously.
Well, we're just trying to do what we can on days when we can. Some days are better than others. Sometimes I try this a couple days ago. I was just like, I'm just going to sit on the couch and I'll watch something with them, some show that they want. On Netflix, there's a movie called The Main Event, and it's a little boy who finds a magic wrestling mask, and then he gets like superpowers, so he's able to like fight in the WWE.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Match. It was really cute. And the little boy is a little black boy, and so it's like a black lead, and I found it on Netflix. Netflix has this area called Representation Matters. And so I was like, yes, all the movies, like all in one place. And then you scroll once, it's like 2 lines. It's 19 options. And I was like, oh shit, we have a problem.
Yeah, we need a lot more than that.
It's like we've already seen half of these things and we're in the kids section and it's like Michelle Obama's Becoming. And I was like, Lord have mercy, we need some more things. But I think to be fair, that they need to reevaluate how they're identifying shows for that section because the Dragon Prince wasn't in there and the lead little prince is brown. So I don't know what their algorithm is, but they might be missing a few pieces.
I just think that, some of these companies, especially like Amazon Prime, they just threw together a collection of movies that they know they have in stock and say, let's do this. We need to jump on board with this, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And it's just crazy. So,
I appreciate all of the attention that Black people and Black culture is getting, and any of the positives that come out of it. Right? Like, I
just hope it continues. It really needs to. We need to really make sure that this doesn't die down, because this has the potential to bring significant changes to the way we do things in society today that will have impactful, significant impact on our youth that are growing up today, and potentially not having to experience some of the stuff that, the older generations have experienced over the past, 5 or 6 decades since the landmark civil rights movement. I think we really need to make sure that we stay the course. Like you said earlier, I know we're getting fatigued, and yes, we're pointing fingers, and normally we're not used to doing that, but we have to, and we need to just push forward.
We absolutely need to. So, but all we can do is hope and pray. I think we can do a little bit more than that, but I'm just going to sit back and watch and see what happens.
Don't get me wrong. Even I was shocked. So the Supreme Court came back with 2 rulings that completely shocked the shit out of me, because I didn't expect them from a conservative majority court.
Yep.
And so, you never know. Things could develop in ways that are just miraculous and amazing and beautiful. And so in the spirit of those 2 amazing decisions that came down through the Supreme Court this week, I'm just going to say it's a good day.
It is. And we'd be remiss if we didn't highlight what those two things are, because we want to acknowledge the importance of them while also pushing people to move forward. So the first one that came out was the decision that you can't be discriminated against in the workplace for being a part of the LGBT community. You cannot be discriminated on for your sexual orientation. So that was the first one.
So, and very important to note that it's a reinterpretation of the original 1965 Civil Rights Act, right? Which incorporated not being able to be, discriminated against based on religion, based on sex, on color. So the question there was sex. Does sex is it sex defined to include gender identity and like gender identity and oh my God, I can't think of the word. But basically what it did was it just basically broadened the interpretation to include language that protects members of the LGBT community from being fired at work for being gay, transgender, bisexual, etc.
Exactly.
Or gender non-conforming.
Yes. So that was the first one. And then the second one was on the DACA, on the Dreamers, right?
That's right.
They cannot be sent back. They cannot be taken. What is it exactly that cannot be taken away?
So right now, the Dreamers Act, or DACA, basically what it is saying that if you were brought here as a child, you had no control of the fact that you were coming here,
right?
Then you could apply for, this was an Obama era executive order that was signed, that you could apply for special status to allow you to get a Social Security and work and stay in the U.S. As a result of that. And so you had over 750, thousand people that are in this country right now that applied and got approved in a way for this specific status. And then when Trump came in, he signed an executive order undoing that. And so that ended up going to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court just ruled that Trump did not have the authority to remove that protected status by executive order. But it doesn't really absolve the whole issue, right? The issue stands still that they still remain in the status, and we need to look at a way to take that work and incorporate it into some meaningful legislation that really provides a huge, upgrade on legislation that we currently have on the books for immigration reform. So there's still a possibility that, someone can come down the line and sort of kind of, swipe the rug from under you and still cause issues. But it's a step in the right direction. And we were just shocked that the Supreme Court itself just ruled that way, because, again, you've got two Trump appointees right now that are sitting on that court, and it's super conservative at this point. So we didn't expect those two rulings.
No, we didn't expect it, and we recognize it as a potential bait and switch. So I'm very grateful for it, but we will not allow them to do something to continue to separate the movement. Right? It is a ploy to quiet down. Right? We've got everybody is a part of this movement. Right? LGBT people are supporting Black Lives Matter right now. Immigrants are supporting. There was a hunger strike at a detention center the other day. Everyone is supporting Black Lives Matter right now. And as a go-to in the playbook, it is to try and divide and conquer. Right. And so if we placate you with this little breadcrumb that you think you need, even though we all recognize that it's not the exact coverage that we really want, then maybe you'll stop making so much noise for Black Lives Matter right now. So while on one hand, I'm really grateful for these two things that have come through because they really do matter, I think many people have said to make sure that we're all staying the course and that we realize that we are not, any of us are not free. None of us are free until we're all free. So.
And I wanted to clarify the definition of what was expanded in the Civil Rights Act is basically gender identity and sexual orientation and gender identity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Those are the two
Makes
key
sense.
pieces of language that were added to that particular decision from the Supreme Court. And the most shocking thing is who wrote the majority opinion, right, on it. It was Gorsuch, Trump appointee, he basically just said, we don't have to look at this from an emotional standpoint. We're looking at this ruling from a literal, like we're reading it literal. Right? You could be a man or a woman, be gay or not. And if I discriminate against you based on your sex, who you choose to sleep with is something sexual, then either way you slice it or dice it, it's still
Wrong.
Discrimination based on sex.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's just been an amazing, an amazing week. And I want to see more amazing news. I want to see more progress. And I think that if we stay the course and stay strong, we're gonna see that. We're gonna see a lot of that.
Absolutely. Well, I think we have covered all the things this week, and there is time next week for more. I want to thank everyone who has tuned in tonight and commented on our Facebook live stream. We are here every week on Thursdays. Shout out to Deltra. Thank you so much for coming on and being so open and honest with us on your journey through, cultural recognition, right? Like we're all learning to really, not we're all. I think Black people, some of us are learning to really pay attention to and stand in and appreciate loudly who we are as a people and as a culture, and that we absolutely have value and deserve to be recognized for who and what we are and what we've contributed to this country. So we are all on a journey to figuring out how to manage all of that, because we are all starting from this place, right? This place of colonization. And so there's no right or wrong way to do it. And I want to make sure that anyone who is listening realizes that there's no right or wrong way. There's no, I think this is the right time to get with it. But if it takes you a couple more weeks, then I'll allow you that. And if you need any help, please reach out to
hurry up.
People, but hurry up. Reach out to me or anybody else in your community. There is always Google. Start with Google and then reach out to someone who you know and love to help you catch up to speed, which is what I always do. So shout out to all the people who I know and love and who love me and help me to be better every single day. I really appreciate you. Until next time, bye.
Follow us at Facebook at Breezy Moms Podcast or email us at breezymomspodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, don't stress, just breathe.